Hi everybody, I am Lovelyn Bassi. I am the founder of the African Businesswoman Network. Now, what is the African Businesswoman Network? It is a network that is really focused on the African businesswoman, her plight, her dreams, her aspirations, helping her to discover herself in business, helping her to succeed, helping her to overcome the challenges. And I'm not just talking about any challenges out there, I'm talking about challenges that have been created by the African culture. So I'm making it a bit more specific because there are lots and several other platforms that are really focusing on the general business, the general thing that affects women. But I want to focus on what the African culture is doing and bringing to the African woman. To take off, I'm going to just say something first, because people who are not from Africa particularly tend to think that when you refer to African women, everybody is black. And I'm using black in terms of race. My children would tell me that there is nobody who is black. So for the purpose of just being correct, we're going to use black, white, and all of that stuff. So the continent of Africa has different races. We have black people, we've got white people, we've got colored people, and we can even dissect it more. But there are more black people in Africa. So hence the thing where people kind of think, oh, it's black people. But really what I'm going to be talking about, you will find that it happens with whatever race they are in Africa, because what I found is that the African culture, there are things that you would find in different races that even though they are different races, they're kind of similar. And it affects women in all the same way. Yes, it is more pronounced in certain cultures, certain races, certain countries than others, but a lot of the plight of African businesswomen are kind of similar because we operate in the same continent that has a certain mindset. So when we talk about the African businesswoman, we want to build our businesses, and it's not just about the big one, because when we talk about African businesswomen, people tend to think about, this woman who is well educated, who has won awards or can win awards, and we all have this gold standard in front of us. But we forget that the woman who sells peanuts on the side of the road is actually a businesswoman. We forget that the street seller, the one who carries fruit on her head, is actually a businesswoman. We forget that the one who sells tomatoes in the market is a businesswoman. The one who sells hairpiece is a businesswoman. The one who does makeup is a businesswoman. All we think about is this flamboyant one because that is what we've been conditioned to see. And I know this because my eyesight were also colored in that perspective. But the more that I went out there and I looked at what is out there and I saw myself, being recognized in different platforms, after a while I started to think, is this what we call an African businesswoman? Yes, it's all great. But the woman who sells by the side of the road needs to also know that she is valid, that she is also a businesswoman. So throughout this podcast, we're going to be looking at different things about the African businesswoman in terms of how does she start her business. We'll look at things that she can do to make her business successful. We'll also discuss access to finance and all of that, which are kind of the general thing. But one thing that we need to understand is even her starting a business also interacts with the African culture. Because some of the things that I've come to realize, and this is both by speaking to people and personal experience, is that there are many African women who cannot even start a business. A lot of them started in hiding. And why do they do this? You find that a lot of times it's because of the people they are married to. And these are African men. I'm going to just use that terminology because, it works. But African men are the ones that we find that stop African women from achieving a lot of things. And in a way, it is the way that they have been brought up and the things they have been brought up to believe. And it's the superiority, it's this thing of, I am the provider, I dictate. And they don't see that in a way they are actually treating African women as children. and trying to control this adult and what they need to do and what they want to do, their hopes and their aspirations. So as we go through this podcast, we're going to be talking about how all of this interacts. Now, I want you to understand something, that this is not about bashing the African man, okay? So the African men can start their own podcast and all of that. But this is not about bashing the African men, because I think that African men are also great. But one of the things that we need to understand in this dynamic is African men need to also recognize that what makes them African men in a lot of cases is a disadvantage to African women and them being business women. So we're going to talk about this. And please, when we talk about this, when I tell the stories, because a lot of the women that I speak to they don't want to use their voice, they don't want their face recorded. So I am going to be telling their stories on the several podcasts that I'm going to have. And when I speak about their fears and their experiences, it is not to say that I am disparaging their partners or the African men in their life, but I am just telling the reality as it currently is, in the hope that people will see what it is that the African businesswoman is going through and try to make space for culture to evolve to accommodate her aspirations and to accommodate her successes. Because this is the thing, there is fear of the African businesswoman's success, and there's also fear of when she attains what she attains, what that means for sustaining and maintaining the status quo of the African culture. So when we talk about all of this, please have an open mind. Don't think about it in terms of anybody being attacked, but think about it as a movement to get the African culture to evolve for the betterment of the African businesswoman. Because here is the thing, African businesswomen are trying to build legacy. We want to build legacy. We want to leave things for our children. And we want to do it to the best of our ability, without limitations, without people trying to defeat us, without people trying to oppress us. We want to thrive so that the family can thrive even more. Okay, so please share this podcast with people. Please subscribe to the podcast, and please share your stories, especially if you're an African businesswoman. We want to hear your story. We want to tell your story. And the way I'm going to tell your story, you will hear that it is not about trying to tear down your spouse, trying to tear down your partner, trying to tear down your father, trying to tear down the men in our community. No, it's about bringing out your voice so that they can hopefully hear what we are saying, and hopefully work with us to make our community and our society a better place for our daughters to come and for ourselves currently. So I look forward to hearing your comments. I look forward to hearing your feedback on this podcast. I look forward to us engaging productively. And I look forward to this being bigger than we all imagined. And most of all, I look forward to a thriving and many thriving African businesswomen out there, because the more of us, the better. Listen, we're trying to make Africa the biggest and the best continent in the world and the most productive continent in the world without us having to beg other people. How do we do that? It is by putting everybody to work and stop the discrimination against African women and African businesswomen. All right. I will see you on the next podcast where we start telling the stories. And I hope that you come along on this journey with me with an open mind. This is Loveline Bassey, and this is the African Businesswoman Podcast. Cheers. Have a good one.